Hello and welcome to Dice and Demons. I'm Emma, and in this video I'm going to show you how I paint a very snowy space marine. So the inspiration for this came from the weather outside. I'm from Denmark, which is in Scandinavia, and so it's quite cold and there's a lot of snow going on. And so I thought, why not paint a space marine to illustrate this weather? So I started off, as you can see, with a space marine that's been primed using a white primer, and that's simply just because I didn't have a black one. So when it was all primed, I painted it all over with a black contrast paint, or in this case it's actually a speed paint, and it's called Grim Black, and it's from the Army Painter. And the reason for this was just that I wanted it to have sort of a nice dark base color, so that when I do the dots later on, if I miss a spot, it won't be as easily visible as if it would be if I just left it white. Then I take, as you can see here, a metal sculpting tool, and this one has a sort of rounded head that works really nice if you want to do small round dots. You could also do this with a brush, but I find that a metal sculpting tool is a little bit easier to use for projects such as this. And also doing a lot of dots, I'm afraid would perhaps ruin a brush. So a metal sculpting tool is just awesome for this. And the only caveat being that it's, of course, not as flexible as a brush. It's not flexible at all. So if you have some very hard to reach places, then it doesn't work that well. So in that case, it's preferable if you can paint it in sub-assemblies or just perhaps do some of the dots with a brush. So as you can see here, I'm just adding in a whole bunch of tiny little gray dots, and I think I ended up using about 7 different nuances of gray. And I started off with the darker gray colors, and I just put them, as you can see, all over the armor plates, both on the bottom and on the top. And the 2 colors I used were both from Vallejo, and one of them is called Steel Gray, that's the darker gray color, and then there is a lighter gray color called Glacier Blue. Then I mixed them with some black paint and some blue paint and some brown paint to get about 7 different nuances of gray for the overall miniature. So as I said, the darker gray colors go all over the armor panels, and then once I get to some of the lighter colors, I put them mostly on the top of the armor panels. This is of course a very stylized look, so I'm not going for any sort of realism here, but still to make sure there was a little bit of color variation on the armor panels, and also just because I think it would make more sense to have the lighter colors on the top to, well, sort of illustrate something like light coming from above. I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense in this particular painting project. It's just something I thought looked a little bit better than if they had the exact same color going on the all over the armor panels. This is, of course, just a project that I'm doing for fun. I'm not going to paint an entire army like this. And painting with tiny dots using a sculpting tool is just very liberating and fun. You can't really do anything wrong. If you end up having a dot that looks out of place, or it's too big, or you happen to smear it out with your fingers or something like that, you can just go back over with some darker dots underneath or on top, and then it will just look completely fine. The sort of overall look comes from the masses of dots, so just put in as many dots as you like, and the more patience you have for it, the better it will end up looking in my experience. Then, in order to stay with the sort of very cold or cool color theme, I decided to paint the trims using a bit of silver, and the paint I'm using here is Iron Hand Steel from Citadel. You can use any sort of silver or sort of iron looking color. I think it'll end up looking just fine no matter what kind of paint you have available to you. I also considered doing something that would be a complete contrast, like a red paint or a pink paint or something, but I thought it was fun to experiment with an almost sort of monochromatic look, because of course that's very different from my usual painting style, where it's more or less just all pinks and purples and bright greens. Then, to add just a little bit of contrast, I decided to paint like the belt buckle and all other sort of small bits on the model in a gold color. because I thought that would stand out nicely from the silver and the grey. But in the end, I decided to repaint it with a bronze color because the gold was just slightly too yellow somehow. It didn't really look that good. And so I thought the reddish tone from the bronze would be better, and I was much, much happier with that. I always try to have this approach when I'm painting something. I usually won't have a set idea of exactly where I want to go when I start a painting project. I'll just try stuff out, and if it doesn't work, I'll just repaint it. I mean, this is, after all, it's a fun and creative hobby, and you are supposed to just enjoy yourself and relax, and yeah, just try it out, see what happens, and if you don't like it, you can always repaint it. Since I was so happy with the reddish tone from the bronze, I decided also to give him red eyes. I don't know why he would have red eyes, I just thought it would look fun, and of course it would be a very contrasting look to the rest of the model, so that's what I did. This is a laser red, which is a fluorescent color from the Army Painter, and I both used it, as you can see, for the eyes, and then I did a very thin glaze to give him a sort of OSL look. Like you can see here, this was very quickly done and not elaborate at all and not time consuming. I just thought it was fun. I'm not that great at OSLs, but I think they're fun to experiment with. And again, this is a fun project, so I thought, why not just try it out and see what happens. And here you can see the final result, and I have to say I'm actually quite happy with it. I thought it was a fun project to paint, and I think he looks fun and very different to what I usually do. And the whole technique with using dots is it's just very fun and very liberating, and actually very quick as well. So I can highly recommend it if you want to try it out. I then decided that, of course, why should he just be standing in a cabinet when I could turn him into a Christmas ornament? So here you can see him hanging happily from my Christmas tree, looking out for some enemies to shoot. And yeah, hello, Dr. Crusher. This is my dog, who thought it was very odd that I was sitting in front of the Christmas tree filming it. So that was what I wanted to show you today, but before I leave, I would just like to take the opportunity to thank the wonderful people who support Dice and Demons over on Patreon. So thank you so much to Thomas Madsen, Scott Broadway, Gwenna L, Queen's Wolf, Double J's Terrain, Mola Mola, Cyber Fossil, Steve Eberly, TJ Kubiak, Mando Project, Starcon85, S. Bear, Economicus, and Elliot Philby. If you also want to support Dice and Demons on Patreon, I will leave a link to that in the show notes. Also remember, if you want to stay up to date on my painting projects, you can follow me as Dice and Demons over on X, formerly known as Twitter, and on Instagram as well. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye!